I want to bring on One America's Greta Wall, an anchor and economic correspondent here at One America News. So, Greta, the markets, they've been volatile as of recently, and it's always this weird type of thing where we see them during the day kind of drop, and then we see kind of futures kind of rise in the later hours. Can you explain that a little bit, what's happening right now in the markets?
Well, today you're seeing a rise after you saw a major drop yesterday. Of course, the Dow dropped nearly 3,000 points on Monday, and you're getting a little bit of a buyback today. But this morning you saw, a higher open and then drop into the negative territory, back into higher territory, back into negative territory. Now we're settling, here at this higher point throughout the afternoon trade. And this volatility is all investors trying to figure out what's coming next. What can we expect? Is this going to get better? Is this going to get worse? The big thing today that investors were listening to was the White House's economic plan. So you had, the coronavirus task force holding their press briefing today talking about that economic stimulus plan. Secretary Steven Mnuchin, Treasury Secretary, very specifically speaking about that and what they plan to do to help the economy. You see big moves from the Fed working to stabilize markets and, open up liquidity and cash flow for Americans and for small businesses and large businesses impacted by this coronavirus outbreak. So investors are looking at everything that the federal government is doing and saying, is this going to be enough? Are we safe enough to get back into the market? Stock market is, of course, a risky place to be if there's any type of economic recession or any type of downturn coming. So investors, flee that and head to bond markets and other safer assets that, hold more solid backing than stocks. And then when they get to a point where they feel like they can be a little safer, there is a plan, there's something going to change moving forward, they can buy back in. So today you're seeing a little bit, more optimism among investors as they, listen to what the White House is saying, what Congress is working on to ultimately help the U.S. economy be able to weather the storm with the coronavirus.
And I want to get to those other steps that the administration is taking a little bit, because that's a little bit different than the stock market.
Yeah.
And I do want to get to that eventually. But there has been speculation as of recently, and in fact, I think the administration has been asked about it, about whether or not the stock market could close for the time being, kind of citing that volatility. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Well, Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin saying today they do not have any plans at this point to close trading on Wall Street. If you think back to 9/11, trading did close for a few days, but that was because the technology was being impacted. The technology to be able to trade was impacted by those terror attacks. We're seeing a lot of volatility. We're hitting limit down, limit up in futures. We're hitting, the circuit breaker multiple times over the last few weeks, or over the last week and a half. We've seen that circuit breaker, the 7% drop hit multiple times, saw it hit on the way up as well. So there's all this volatility. There's these big swings in the market, major movement happening, and some people are saying, shouldn't we stop this? Shouldn't we stop the volatility? But, they want to keep the stock market open. They want to leave you to the ability to get your money. They want to leave people the ability to get into their 401k and get out if they want, if they pull their money out and do all of that. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin saying they want to make sure Americans have access to their money. They have no plans at this point to shut down the stock market. There is a possibility that they could change the trading hours, shorten the hours that the stock market is open, but at this point, no plans to halt any trading for long term.
And I think that last point is important too, people having access to their money at this time, because we're going to be seeing a time over the next couple of weeks, as we kind of mentioned in the segment, where people might not be getting their paycheck for an extended period of time. The Trump administration is speaking today that they are looking to take other steps in order to kind of address that. And they've also been speaking about things outside of the stock market too. You and I were talking before this about how there's the stock market, but then there's other people who still have jobs. There's wages, other ways to get money, other parts of the economy that are being affected right now. Can you speak to that?
Well, what the administration is looking at is two things. They're looking at the possibility of a payroll tax cut and then the possibility of just, sending money straight to Americans. Mnuchin today talking more about that plan to possibly send checks directly to Americans. And the reason that is getting, more bipartisan support in Congress than the possibility of a payroll tax cut is a payroll tax cut is good and it benefits Americans, puts more money in their pockets, but it only benefits those who are actually getting a paycheck. If you're not working because of the coronavirus, you're not getting a paycheck, you don't benefit from a payroll tax cut at this time. They're looking to give Americans immediate relief right now to help with the economic pressure that this outbreak is putting on them. So something like a $1,000 check for, say, sent to every American, that helps Americans if they're working, if they're not working. That helps all Americans who qualify for that type of relief. They haven't spoken about what, income thresholds or what would be put on that plan, but they want to help Americans and they want to do it immediately. Mnuchin's saying they want to do this now within the next 2 weeks. And so he's been meeting with Senate Republicans today to discuss these economic stimulus plans to figure out what can they do that will actually help and will actually hopefully spur some, economic activity and some consumer activity here in the U.S. even amid this outbreak. You're seeing these major shutdowns in cities across the country saying, don't go out, don't do anything, don't spend your money. But they want people to still spend money at restaurants where you can get takeout, and they still need consumer activity to be happening so we don't fall into this total shutdown on the consumer side of our economy. As you know, our supply side has been hit hard by the coronavirus outbreak. And then you have moves from the Fed to open up liquidity, more cash flow in the market, more cash flow for small businesses. Lowering of rates to near 0% is to help businesses be able to get these quick loans, overnight loans, short-term loans to be able to keep their business afloat while they're not seeing any business during this outbreak.
And just really quick before I let you go too, because we have a hard break coming up. Big picture, is this something that we should expect for the next couple of weeks, this kind of volatility, this kind of back and forth a little bit? Is this something that we should get used to?
I think, we're just going to see volatility, and we're going to see volatility for a while here. I'm not, a financial advisor. I'm not going to give anyone advice on when they should be buying into the market. But I think the volatility is inevitable as the stock market ingests what is coming from the administration and what they're going to do to help the economy and to stabilize this kind of stuff. You're going to see ups, you're going to see downs, you're going to see, flat days. There's going to be major volatility as investors try to gauge what the White House is doing, what Congress is doing, what the Fed is doing. All of those factors come into play. It's a lot of factors. A lot of things are up in the air. As the number of virus cases changes here in the U.S., that kind of stuff will change. So definitely I would expect volatility over the next few weeks.
Greta Wall, you can catch analysis like this every day throughout the week, especially during the closing bell. Greta, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Alex.